The Sodor Ironworks, also known as the scrapyards, is a very important location on the island. Whenever old things cannot be useful anymore, they are taken away to the scrapyards to be cut up and melted down, where they then can be made into new things. The engines are often scared to go there, while the Fat Controller has made it clear to them that they will always have a home on his railway. They can't help but feel a bit nervous when they are sent to work there, especially since the two Ironworks diesels, Arry and Bert, like to play tricks on them. One morning, a new Railtour train pulled into Knapford Station. Its engine was named Evening Star. Murdoch came to see her. Murdoch? Evening Star called. She could hardly believe her eyes. Is that you, brother? Yes, it is, Murdoch replied. It's good to see you again. Oh, yes, it is such a beautiful experience to see one of my brothers or sisters again, Evening Star wistfully sighed. Especially nowadays. There aren't many of us left after all. Murdoch silently agreed. Then the Fat Controller came to see Evening Star. There's been a change in your accommodations, he said. Normally, the sheds at the end of the yard would be reserved for your use, but it's currently being repainted. The only place that has space for you is the scrapyards. Thank you for letting me know, sir, Evening Star smiled. Murdoch made a face. Are you sure you wouldn't want to sleep anywhere else? He said. I'm sure I can find space at my shed. No need to worry, Murdoch, Evening Star said. I'm sure that I'll be comfortable there. When nighttime came, Evening Star made her way to the scrapyards. She looked around nervously as the looming hulks of dead engines and machinery flanked her from either side. The sound of rusting metal and the hum of the smelting shed filled the air. Then Arry and Bert rolled towards her. They thought it fun to try to scare her. The Fat Controller told us you'd be coming here tonight, Arry growled. I'd be careful, Bert grunted. You wouldn't want to end up like this sorry lot. He glanced over to an engine's boiler. I'll be okay, Evening Star said quietly. Thank you for letting me stay here. Arry and Bert looked at each other confused. No steam engine was ever thankful to be at the scrapyards. Evening Star then pulled into the siding and fell asleep. The next morning, Evening Star was wide awake and cheerful. Arry and Bert was still determined to get a fright out of her. Good morning, said Evening Star cheerfully. What's so good about it? Bert roared. You're a stevie in the scrapyard, said Arry. You should be terrified. Evening Star thought for a moment. I was at first, she admitted. But when I look around these scrapped engines, all I see is how they can be useful later on. Eh? You see, I know that they're going to be cut up and melted down, but their metal will be used to create new things, like a car, or a bus, or an aeroplane, or even a new kind of engine. So, in a sense, they'll never stop being really useful. Evening Star puffed out of the scrapyard. I'll see you later, she called. Arry and Bert stared. What is she on about? Asked Arry. No steam engine's ever been happy to stay here before, replied Bert. We'll have to try harder, Arry decided. We'll make you crack. Just you wait and see. Later on, Bert was collecting trucks of scrap when he noticed Evening Star up the line. He stopped when he came near her. What are you doing here? He grunted. Shh, she said quietly. Look over there, near the trees. Bert looked closer. I can't see anything, he said. Look closer. Bert looked again. Then he saw it. It was a mother deer with a baby near her feet. Isn't nature simply wonderful? Whispered Evening Star. I suppose so, Bert pondered. Life is a gift that we should never take for granted, Evening Star went on. For it's as fragile as that newborn deer. Look how the mother cares for it. That's how we should treat all life. Like a baby deer? Yes, like a baby deer. Bert was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry for trying to frighten you yesterday, he said at last. It's quite all right, said Evening Star. You should probably be on your way with those trucks. I'm sure Arry is waiting for you. Oh, yeah, right, spluttered Bert, and went on his way. Arry was waiting impatiently as Bert pulled into the scrapyard. There you are, he grumbled. Where have you been? Sorry, Arry, replied Bert. I was on my way back when... Never mind. Now, listen here. I've just thought of something that'll scare Evening Star out of her buffers. Arry, said Bert, I don't think I want to do that anymore. Arry frowned. Don't tell me you've gone soft. I'm just saying, maybe we could be nice to the steam engines for a change, Bert suggested. Show them we ain't so bad after all. Arry was furious. Right, that's torn it, he growled. I'm going to bring her down to reality if it's the last thing I do. Arry rushed out of the scrapyard. Wait, don't! Bert called out and raced after him. At Knapford Station, Evening Star was preparing to take her Railtour train back to the mainland. Murdoch had come to say goodbye. There wasn't much trouble at the scrapyard, was there? Asked Murdoch. Not necessarily, said Evening Star. Those two diesels you mentioned did try to scare me, but I remain undeterred. You know, some may not see it, but I do think they have good in them. Oh, Evening Star, you always see the good in people, said Murdoch admiringly. Just then, Arry raced up to her, with Bert trailing behind. Listen here, you, Arry grumbled. What is it with you? What do you mean? Asked Evening Star innocently. This unrealistic, flowery, sappy personality of yours, Arry continued. You go about pretending that the world is some big, happy wonderland of pleasures, when it obviously isn't. Honestly, who thinks like that? You should be the most miserable engine in the world, because, may I remind you, you're the last steam engine built on the mainland. If I were you, I'd be miserable. So what gives? The station fell silent. Murdoch was so cross he wanted to give Arry a piece of his mind, but Evening Star broke the silence. You're correct, she said. I am the last steam engine built for British Railways. My existence marks the end of an era, and I have felt this burden for years. Yes, I was miserable, but one day I decided that, even though my story has a sad beginning, I won't let that dissuade me from living to the fullest, and to never take anything for granted. But you... Arry was struggling to find the right words to say. Never mind, Arry, said Bert. Let's go home. The two diesel shunters rolled away to the scrapyard as Evening Star pulled her train out of the station. Arry was silent for the rest of the day. He had a lot to think about.